What's up, small fries? I'm Sera and I hope you liked the video. Howdy creators, it's me, the little alien that lives on your computer, TV, phone, and tablet, and I'm here with a course for you. This is Sera's Super Sick Original Species Mega Course, but you can just call it the Original Species Mega Course, and you have to say it like that every time. But what is this? This is a huge course that covers 8 modules or chapters with more than 80 different lessons covering everything you need to learn how to make, run, monetize, and advertise an original species community. I'll give you the tools you need to make your species, manage the community, advertise, and more. But what makes me qualified to make this course? You likely already know me, if you're seeing this, as I doubt people who aren't into original species would want to hear about this. I'm Sera, the owner of Sera's Things. Since the creation of this channel in 2022, I've covered over 100 species in great detail across 30 different communities and have talked with 10 species community owners. I've even run contests where nearly 100 people submitted species and my audience voted on them. I wouldn't consider myself an expert because I believe learning doesn't end just because you finish school. Everyone is a lifelong student, they just don't know it. But I would say I'm pretty dang knowledgeable about this subject, and you'd struggle to find all of these tips in one singular place. Even on my own YouTube channel, not all these tips have gotten their own videos, well, until now. So by using this course, you'll learn things that others don't know yet. Now, am I saying that if you finish my course, you'll reach huge success and become a millionaire sitting on a stack of fan art and fanning yourself with fat stacks of cash? No, I don't deal in guarantees. The success you reach is entirely on you and luck. I'm just giving you the tools and information I have that can increase your chances and help minimize luck's involvement. But art is subjective. What I consider good isn't what others necessarily would either. There are a lot of factors that go into success and what you define as success. I also don't control how much of this you watch and what you actually choose to listen to and apply. So if you finish this entire course and you're not a millionaire, remember that I never promised you that you would hit it big because that's not what this is for. Don't go into original species and community creation expecting to make money. The economy is garbage right now, and for the foreseeable future it will continue to be garbage. And the only people thriving are those willing to be assholes or exploit others. This course is meant to give you the knowledge to empower yourself to make an original species and a community and feel confident in your ability to create it. So if even one person walks away from this course feeling more confident than they went in, I would call this a success. I didn't figure this out until later, but the best way to show you why you should get my course is to show you what people have said about my tip videos in the past. So there's going to be tips playing throughout the video in the background. So make sure you keep your eyes on the screen and see if your comment got on screen. Before we continue, if you feel like this advice is too general, I do offer consultations. In a consultation, I'll study your species and then we'll talk about what we can do to help you achieve your goals, and I'll give you tons of advice specific to just your species. Not everyone will give you this feedback. Not everyone can give you this feedback. To get a consultation, you can email me at serasthings@gmail.com with the subject consultation, or DM me at SeraProto on Discord and Twitter. Originally, I was going to charge for this course, but this YouTube version is completely free and released one episode at a time over a long period of time. So if you find this course useful at all, please send me a super thanks by clicking the button below the video and check the description and pinned comment to get the paid version if it's fully done and out. If not, become a patron to the $5 or higher tier in my Patreon to access the future lessons as they come out. Once the entire course is done, I'll host the final version somewhere where it can be bought in full. The YouTube versions will likely come out once or twice a month, as I do have other things that I have to post that, keep the channel alive. Whereas the Patreon version will come out much more frequently. So if you want to see this stuff early, check the pinned comment for my Patreon, or a link to the full version if it's in the future, like way in the future, and it's done. Original Species has an incredibly small audience. The furry fandom is already such a small community, and only a fraction of them like Original Species, and a fraction of them actually want to make species of their own. There will also be updates, so super thanks are good support, but I'd super recommend going to my Discord so you can ask questions directly to me, or from other creators that are in there. Set up your own consultation if you get one, or get an ad on my channel to find more members for your community, or get your own original species video. Remember, if you learn anything from this, it's that you need to get started. I can teach you every single trick under the sun, but some things can only be learned through actual experience and application. So try stuff for yourself, and remember what I said. We're all lifelong learners. Once you're done with my course, you're not done learning. But let's continue. Who is this course for? Some of you have probably already started typing into the comments and said, you don't need this kind of course. You can just make original species for fun. I don't think this guide is going to be good for people who are just doing it for fun. And yeah, it's probably not. This guide is for people who are looking to do something a little more deliberate, maybe like creating an art RPG or something. This course isn't for people who are just making species for funsies. I still want you to have fun, of course. It's important that you do. It's seriously important that you still enjoy this work. But it's primarily for people who want to run a large community or want to design something like an art RPG species game, and for a large community, open, closed, or restricted species. This is for a big, serious project for people who are wanting to take it seriously from the very beginning. You can make an original species all you want without this video. Just draw an animal that is one that doesn't currently exist, and you've got an original species. This video isn't for you. This video is for people who want to elevate it and go beyond that. It'd be better to say that this course is for goal-oriented people who have a specific goal in mind to achieve, rather than the make it and see what happens approach. Risks. Before we get onto the bulk of the learning and everything, we need to talk about risks, because with every project, you have risks. These are some of the things that can happen if you fall short of your goals. Mostly the risks in a project like an original species project is directly related to the scale of the species and your ability as an individual to manage groups of people. Risk 1. Money loss. This risk is the most obvious one, and thanks to rampant corporatism and the commodification of the self and your time, this is always a risk. When you go to a grocery store instead of working, you choose to spend money instead of making it. You can thank capitalism for that treat. But there are some other aspects unique to this project that can make you lose money. One is that buying a website to host your species will cost money if you choose to, actually buy a site rather than use a free one. And another one is if you choose to hire people to do the art, if you specifically don't want to handle all the art yourself, or if you're a wacko like me and decide to make an original species while having no artistic ability at all. Community management, you might want to hire people for community management, or if you want to do something like Lorekeeper, you may need a web designer. But a web host costs between $50 and $100 a year, and you can always use a free host and a free domain like WordPress or Wix, unless you need Lorekeeper, in which case you need to actually own the site. Risk 2, time wasted. This one is very subjective. If your species fails, then all that time that you put into it may feel like a waste. But I'll tell you something. I spent 10 years failing to be a YouTuber, then in the past 2 years I got 18,000 subscribers. Failures are opportunities to learn. Think about that time you touched something hot and you burnt yourself. It hurt. Badly. But you learned not to do it again. There's a proverb that you might be familiar with. One cannot refuse to eat just because there's a chance of choking. Or you might know the Americanized version of this. You can't let the fear of striking out keep you from playing ball. And the proverb, it's suggesting that you can't let something like choking keep you from doing something you need to do to live. And the baseball proverb is more about the fun of it. By refusing yourself the chance of failure, you're refusing yourself the chance of fun and learning. Risk 3, drama. This one is never a game ender for a species. So don't think of drama as a failure. Unless you're doing some horrible, unspeakable crime. Original species communities have hundreds of participants. Anytime you get a large group of people together, and you expect them to become friends, there is always a chance of a bad egg who is obsessed with starting shit. Personally, I live the duck lifestyle. When water hits my back, it beads off my feathers. I don't let it sit there and soak it in. I don't let it get to me. But not everyone can do that. If your community has drama, that doesn't mean you failed. It means you succeeded in making a community and some gremlin is trying to throw wrenches into things. Just take it in stride, deal with the drama, and if you're the one making a mistake, remember this. Be quick to share your opinion, but be quicker to change your mind when proven wrong. Risk 4, in over your head. This one is more personal. Not everyone is equipped to socialize with hundreds of people regularly, let alone deal with all their problems. Everyone says they want to be a YouTuber or a streamer, but a lot of you aren't really ready for that because you're not ready for the pressure that comes with that kind of thing, or the socialization that's required. If you're feeling overwhelmed when you do this project, this is a big indicator that it's time to find others to help you. There are no shortage of people who want to jump in and help on a species. Consider getting more staff before you decide to quit. That's really it for risks. Money isn't a concern because you control what you put in, and if you're an artist, you can do everything for the cost of just the time invested. Just remember, you can do this. And if you can't, you can always ask for help. Think of your community as a city or a school. No one handles hundreds of people on their own. They get help, more teachers, mayors have secretaries, cops suck, but they have captains, sheriffs, and officers, and almost always work in pairs. Divide the labor and listen to what your peers have to say, and you should be fine. Breakdown. It's time for the breakdown. Let's go over each module that we're going to be going through in the entire future, and our goals for each module, as well as why we have them organized like this. Here in the first module, you guessed the theme already. We're setting up. We're setting expectations. We talked about risks, and I've been honest with you. It's weird to say something like that out loud, but there are lots of courses that are scams. But let's just say your success means I have more species to cover, so it benefits me. So I want you to succeed, because I want an endless source of species to cover. So I'm very invested in you succeeding, just as much as you're invested in this course. In this module, we'll also define a few things. Let's talk about release windows, betas, defining goals, and how to gain confidence. In Module 2, we'll discuss how design can affect everything about your community. Planning materials, definitions, and community styles, business-minded design, speculative evolution, and lots more. You might have your species already made, but I highly suggest you still watch this. You might change your mind about your design after I show you how it can effectively choose who joins. Module 3 is lore. I'll teach you about lore and its effects on your potential audience, how to know you put too much lore, the bare minimum lore you do need, how to use lore as an expansion device to the species, and the importance of lore. This one is after 2, because this is stuff you can do quickly, but still needs to be done before your website, and because it's just as important. In Module 4, we'll talk about monetization practices. You're probably familiar with how you can monetize an art community or a game, but I've seen a lot of drama about monetization, so it seems like a lot of people don't know about sales funnels and when you're supposed to try and sell someone something, alongside not knowing when your monetization is too heavy. I'll also give you some new ideas for monetization that you probably haven't thought of. But why does this come before the community section? Because how you monetize will affect how your community is structured. Some monetization methods require a community to be built in a special way. And also, there's nothing worse than creating something that is free at first, and then after the community comes in, you decide that you rather charge for that thing. People really hate it when something that was once free now costs money. Module 5 is about community. In this module, I'll help you figure out your demographic and how to target them, as well as hosting options and community styles. There are many different kinds of original species communities. If you've never participated in an art RPG, your head will spin. I also talk about accessibility and inclusivity and fun stuff like how to make your community feel important. This one is before the website because I think you need a community in place first, because people need a place to share their work and ask as many questions that they might have. It's also to have this in place because you'll need a place for them to know and meet other participants, and Discord is hands down the best way to get guaranteed eyes on anything you do. Module 6. Module 6 is where we get to making the website. I provide free and paid options as well as how to set it up. This is a simple module. People think websites are super hard to make, but there are also so many options out there that make this process easy. In Module 7, we'll talk about advertising and getting people to look at and join your community. This is another business-minded one. I'll give you the obvious tips, but I'll also give you some practices that you can use to ensure people get the best view of you and your work. A cool one is how I show you how to get your fans to advertise your species for you, and they don't even know that they're doing it. Sounds sneaky, but trust me, they'll love doing it. The last module is 8, and this is just things to avoid. These are things I've seen other communities do, or things I've done that results in people leaving the communities. This one is one that I'm going to be updating frequently with bonus modules, but honestly, all of these are going to get updates. The internet is an ever-changing thing, and what works today probably won't work 10 years from now. At first, closed species were accepted, but now you can't say you own one unless you're ready to defend your life. You can skip through all these, as you need to, but I'd recommend watching them in full, starting with design. Once you're done with the design module, watch the rest while you draw your species, and the time will just fly by. I also have some homework sections in here. Try to take it seriously. What is an original species? Now back to this module, instead of describing what the other modules are about. What is an original species? You know this one already, but how I define an original species is more involved than what you may call an original species. Many would define an original species simply as a creature that you've made up, but I think that's a little too broad. For me, an original species is a combination of 3 important factors: art, lore, and community. If you're missing any one of these things, your species might not be recognizable as an original species. If you have art with no lore or community, you just have an adoptable species. Just lore, and that's a short story or a book. And just community isn't really possible. Art and lore, you're getting closer, and many would be fine with this, but this could be an open species or an adoptable species or even a book with art. Art and community can be an original species like an open one, but it's just as likely an adoptable species, and community and lore is just a book club. But when you combine the art, the lore, and the community, you get something entirely unique. An original species. And that's what this course is about, making an original species to this definition. The levels of each specification I set can vary, but all three are needed to be uniquely identifiable as an original species. Think about Dutch Angel Dragons. They have art, lore, too much some might say, and a community full of fursuiters and artists. Protogens have art, minimal lore, and a sort of nebulous idea of a community. In my species, we have art, lore, and a lot of community. Of my own art, there is very little, but with my strong community, they're rewarded for contributing art. The lore is enough to get people going with occasional updates every 3 months, alongside some drip-fed stuff through items like Dark Souls. And the community is just super strong. The chats in these are almost always moving. There are new people joining every couple of days. There are always people talking, asking questions, and making art for each other. This would never be confused for anything but an original species, or maybe an art game if you're looking at Nomchromancy. But of course, adoptable species and open species are technically original species, but most of them don't hit the same level as a community that utilizes all three corners of this pyramid. Why are you making an original species? Most original species in the past were made by accident. Species like wicker beasts, protogens, vernids, and Tiba were all made into original species by complete accident. For some, the concept of original species and species communities just didn't exist yet, so they had to be invented by accident. For example, the first wicker beast was vent art, and people loved them. Protogen were made because Kulko Inu's primogens were so popular that they had people knocking on their door all the time, but they wanted to keep primogens close to their chest and stay closed, so they made the protogens as an open version of them. Vernids were made by Li Lai Ra as a kid by meshing dogs and dragons together, and Tiba were made by Mr. Tallycat in a very similar way. Tally would use the family computer and mash animals together. Then one day people really liked Tiba. For many of these creators, these species were lifelong side jobs that happened by total accident. But now that we're aware of original species, lots of people want to make one. And you're watching this, meaning that you're making it with intent. Some of you may succeed and reach your goals without ever having to think about how or why or what the goals even are. Tally didn't make Tiba with gaining 1,000 Discord members in mind. I didn't make Astral Mycos with getting 10k subs in mind. I made Astral Mycos by accident too. Originally, this form you see before you was made just to VTube with and nothing else. I wanted a unique VTubing character. I made this character even before the Sera's Things channel. I made me for my gaming channel and streams because I wanted to be a VTuber. Then I made species content, and now Myconians are a thing. They're definitely not as popular as Tiba or something like Synths, because they're intentionally simple. Just take a furry and slap some antennas and mushroom themes on them. The projects I've made intentionally since are much more of a success because I had goals in mind and reasoning in mind. Tally and I made our species because we wanted to make something new, or as a way to kill boredom, but most of you are going to need to have clear goals in mind and work towards achieving these goals. Earlier I said the things that work now might not work 10 years from now, and that's true of the past too. There will be exceptions. Some will make a species without intending to get famous, without intending to get money, or with the intent to build a community, and then that species will still just explode into popularity. But since you're watching this video, you're already not part of that group. You're part of the group that is doing it intentionally, with intent. You need to figure out what that intent is, and set clear and achievable goals and milestones. And it doesn't really matter what goals you set, as long as they're easy, doable, and you can set new ones after. But we are at an advantage here. Think of all the people who make species by accident that don't get noticed, or the ones who blow up and are immediately in over their heads. The creator of Wicker Beast, Damon Lady, quit because managing a community was too much for them. We have the benefit of knowing what we're doing going in, and if you're someone who wants to build a community, then you're someone who can handle it. You will be ready when it happens because you've been working towards it and preparing yourself. You won't be surprised when it does happen. That's the big secret. Intent. Knowing what you're doing, going in. Now, the reason we need to know why you want to make an original species is because this will affect absolutely everything you do going forward. It will influence every decision made and you will make. For example, if we are intentionally doing it for fun, we need to prepare for certain things that will likely happen. What will you do if someone wants to make a character from your species? What if they want it to be on their merch or represent their business? Do they need to credit you? If it gets popular, are you going to make it into a community? What kind of community? Will it be open, closed, private? Is it going to be an art RPG? And that's just the questions we have for if you're doing it for fun. One of the biggest risks of for fun design is, say you decide to make it an open species. You don't have a community place like a Discord. You don't have a website to post rules, and you don't have guides. How will you handle someone taking your species and running away with it? What will you do if the community jerks control from you and make their own lore and rules, or even profit from your work by making merch? If you don't think that will happen, watch my video about Avali, because it has happened, and it will happen again. If you didn't have stuff in place for this in advance, you'll get surprised and caught off guard. This is the kind of thing that can happen to accidental or popular overnight creators. Luckily, people like Tally and Lee Lai Ruck quickly adapted to the wave of popularity that they received. But there are some who don't, and crack under the pressure. So making for fun is perfectly fine if you're still doing it with intent, because you can prepare for these questions and outcomes in advance. As you might guess, I'm okay with doing it for fun, or just for the pleasure of self-indulgence, but it does pose a lot of problems and outcomes. What I would recommend is that if you're doing it just for fun, consider making the species closed or private, and explain, I'd prefer if this species stayed just between me and my friends. It worked perfectly fine for Cool Koino and Primogen. But this isn't even a 100% guarantee. Some people get a kick out of breaking the rules. There are lots of people out there who will make an OC of a closed species just because they're told not to. I call those people children, but anyway, you may want to make a community just to help prevent that too. If you don't believe me that someone will make your closed species for fun, just go onto TikTok and you'll find people that are making closed species OCs without permission and bragging about it like they just won an award or something. Like it's something actually brag-worthy rather than what it actually is. A child drawing on the walls of their bedroom because mommy said not to. In the end, doing it for fun is fine, but you should build a little bit of a game plan for yourself for how you'll handle this stuff. If you're making a species with the intent to build a community, you need to figure out how much of the species is yours. What I mean here is, for your community to be successful, people need to feel like they're invested in the community, that what they do matters and influences the community in some meaningful way. If you give a bit of control over to your community, they'll view your species as a place of comfort, like a second home. This is what is called one for them, one for me. Make some aspects of your species just for you. This is the one for me. This can be as self-indulgent as you like. Then you need to make some aspects of the community and species something they have control over, the one for them. For example, I've been doing art events where people make food. I'm not very artistically talented, and I know that's not my strong suit. Writing is my strong suit, so I hand the art stuff over to them. All of the art of the traits in Mera is made by my community too. If they know their art is going to be on the site, they'll hop on that opportunity stat. You should still reward them for this, of course, but we'll get into that in a later module. But this sharing of labor and management will help prevent burnout for you too. You get to make what you want to, and they get to make what they want to. And, at the same time, save you a little bit of work, and you both share this community. It is as much yours as it is theirs. But the level of input that you allow is entirely up to you. It's important that you know which aspects are best under your control though. For me, I know writing is what made Mera interesting in the first place. I made it dark and moody, but not too dark. And not everyone can write with my specific writing voice. So I tend to not let them handle any lore that I consider super important. I do make exceptions though, like I did with the food and the monsters. You as the creator get the final say though. So be cool with using their ideas, but make changes to their ideas so that they do fit in the world. When Worm Syrup made Rebirth, the lore was great, so I did not have to add much. If you want to make money, that's fine, but trust me, there are better ways to make money. It's August 2023 as of writing this, and I made Mera in March, and I've only made $324 during that time. But if you want to monetize, you should feel allowed to do so. What you're doing is taking a lot of time you could be spending doing anything, and you're choosing to do it to make a community, manage it, moderate it, and expand it. You're providing a service for everyone involved, and you need electricity and internet to keep doing that. So don't feel too bad about monetizing your species. I think you should find ways to do it even if you don't want to. But with this goal, you'll need ideas to make money as well as how to properly balance it. Too heavy-handed, and you scare people away. Not enough, and you're where I am. It's fine that I don't make much, though, because I have other sources of income, like you lovely people at home. For example, if you want to do adopts, you'll need to figure out if you're going to do batches, bases, or originals, and are you going to do exclusive adopts. Wicker Beasts have hybrid adopts and commissions that can only be made by approved artists. It's important to figure out monetization before you even think of accepting new members, because you might make mistakes by adding new monetization methods later. You spring up too many or only show up for the paycheck, and you'll make your community hate you. That's what happened with Lupai and Mochi Raptors. You might also want to plan monetized content drops, adding new things that have an option to buy. Having it planned from the very beginning will prevent future confusion and outrage. Now that you've figured out why you're making your original species, you need to figure out what applies to you for that goal. As an example, you might not want to worry about what makes your species marketable if you're doing it for fun. If you're doing it for fun, you should be making what you want because you want that, not because you think it'll make it popular. Popularity isn't important if you're doing it for you. Keep your goal in mind as we go through these other lessons, because this answer will decide which of these tips are applicable to you. So now you probably get why this question was so important. A seemingly inconsequential question like why will affect your entire species going forward. And once we figured out the why, we can start working on the how. Confidence. The biggest thing that can bite you in the butt is your confidence. The number one thing I see when people suggest their species to me is they always talk negatively about it in some way. If you don't like your species, how can you expect others to care about it? This is the single most important thing I'll say to you. No matter if you succeed or fail, what makes you better than everyone else is that you finished your project. The vast majority of people who have ideas never even write them down, let alone start, and even less than that, finish it. If you actually work on your species and finish it, then you're already in the 1% of people who make species. Do not talk negatively about your work. You made it, and there are thousands that didn't even get that far. If you're passionate about your work, act like it. Your energy towards things will almost always be matched by others. If you're excited about something, people will instinctively be curious about it. Even if your idea sucks, they'll still be interested in it because you are. Look at how many people hopped onto NFTs and cryptos despite how stupid all that crap is. Because confidence is what sells your work. That's why a con man is called a con man, because they sell you with just the confidence. If you act like it's not worthwhile, then people you tell about it won't take it seriously either. Show the energy you want people to have when looking at your work. And that's it for Module 1. In Module 2, we'll be going over species design, where the format will finally kick in. And I'll teach you about things like how design affects your audience, designing for yourself versus designing for an audience, how to make traits, sexes, variants, how to rank rarity of traits, and how to avoid making a creature that looks too much like another person's creature. All very useful stuff. But before we go, I'd like to thank my patrons, whose funding has let me work on this project in near secret for about a year, without making me feel like I needed to release it early just to survive. So thanks to Rask, Ver, WildKitty69, Beeve, Bait, Cryptid Artha, Sly, Colorado Blue, Linky, Kit Chimera, and Malding Brick. Thanks for watching, and remember to join my Patreon at the $5 or higher tier to access future lessons way before they come out here on YouTube.